As Winford Vermees, looking at your competitor, looking at NutraSweet, how do you expect they will respond? With a price war or with normal competition? What do you say? Jalissa.
I actually think that they will respond to the price war.
Okay, why?
Particularly, well, if you look at Europe and Canada kind of in a vacuum, you would think that they're going to lose money in the short term.
I have the case in front of me, I have the write-up in front of me, and I'm really looking at what are the key points. I mean, in my head, I'm already thinking like, all right, top 3 things that I want to get across in my 30-second speech.
And exactly how's the price war going to accomplish that end?
The knowledge that you might be called upon to make an intelligent, cogent argument in front of people whose opinion you care about does motivate you in those off hours.
Who sees it very differently? Miss Mark, what's going on?
I think they're very confident in their branded strategy for, they don't want to turn this into a commodity product.
We accept everyone's backgrounds and everyone's perspectives to the point where we can actually hear them out. And I feel like everyone does a really good job of listening to the point where they can think about it and say whether they agree or disagree, and then coming up with a compelling reason as to why they agree or disagree.
Kara, in or out?
This is where I think the behavioral issues are overwhelming. They're going to continue to fight because they've already invested in this. So I think they're going to just kind of keep throwing good money after bad.
I know I cannot compete with NutraSweet on price, but I might be able to compete with them on brand. So what I would try to do is try to do some like customer research and try to really get the HSC product out there and really get it to the point where there's some critical mass as far as brand recognition, and then approach Pepsi and say, hey Pepsi, here's an additional level of aspartame that you can have to compete with Coke who's using the NutraSweet.
Kara, why don't you role play Pepsi? How do you respond to Phil?
I have a couple of problems. I mean, one, your product isn't branded yet, and it takes quite a bit of time. I see that you're trying to give me a point of differentiation to go after my competitor, but to be honest, I just don't have the faith in you yet to be willing to take that gamble.
I think fun is one of the most underrated aspects of the case method. Learning shouldn't always be difficult. Learning shouldn't be painful. There's a certain element of joy that comes with learning.
Jen, you had another proposal.
Yeah, so I'm going to go to Pepsi and I'm going to say, I'm only going to work with you. If you just work with me, then I'll lower your price and you're going to get the competitive advantage from working with me, whereas NutraSweet's not going to have to match that because they're just working with Coke.
That sounds a little bit better.
I found that I learned a ton from my professors, but I really learned the most from my fellow section mates.
You never, ever, ever, ever enter a price war if you don't have credible low-cost position. If you ever do that and I learn about it, I will deny that I ever knew you at Harvard Business School. Okay? Never, ever. And then very important what Samir is saying, they entered without any advantage. There was not a superior gap between cost and willingness to pay.
That was a major lesson of the case. And in addition, it drew on concepts we had built up over the previous half-dozen cases. So it showed that things had kind of come together for a set of people.
We'll continue to look at competitive dynamics on Thursday when we look at the fascinating battle between British Satellite Broadcasting and Sky Television. Thanks.
My favorite classes are those where the debate is still raging 20 minutes after class, and we can't stop it.
You really give a lot in those 80 minutes as far as listening and vocalizing your perspective. You really start to see why the case method works so well because you're surprised with how much you remember from the case, but also from what people's responses were to the case.
There's very specific situations that any manager is going to experience at some point in their career.
We teach people in many ways the courage to act under uncertainty. The facts in a case are always limited. The amount of information you have at hand is by design quite compressed. You're working under great time pressure. We're asking people to learn how to take a stand.
It's not a passive process, and frankly, management's not a passive process. They get to try out many of the component processes of management in the classroom, and they get to build muscles around things like judgment.
The answer to most questions is, it depends. If one can leave here understanding under what circumstances you would go left and under what circumstances you would go right, then you've got a depth of knowledge, and you've got it kind of in your gut as well as in your head.
I think Harvard Business School is the finest teaching institution in the world. And I don't just mean among business schools. Teaching is in the fabric of the culture. We go back in a long tradition, started probably even before Socrates, but we can certainly go back to there. We want to continue in that tradition. Some things never get old.